from the age of 9, your coaches, you know, were just teaching you how to throw a punch, I suppose.
Yeah, we used to spar. We used to hit the bags and spar and do a little bit of pad work and a bit of fitness, a bit of running and that, you know, as you do when you're kids, press-ups and sit-ups, just a few. I can remember doing the training, pretty much what I do now, but obviously I'm a lot more intense and more consistent now. But yeah, we used to spar, we used to put the gloves on and let a load of shots go. I can remember when I was back at my old amateur gym the other day, and there's a window ledge, probably 2 metres wide, and we used to all sit on that. I mean, I've looked at it now the other day, 2 metres wide, you'd probably get 3 or 4 adults on it, but there was about 10 of us all sat along it, all waiting for our turn, so we'd have our gum shield and our gloves, and Lee was in there, my older brother. He says, "Oh, can you remember this windowsill? We used to sit on here and wait for our turn in sparring."
Really?
And it brought back the old memories, it did.
So you actually passed your medical when you were about 11?
Yes. As soon as I was old enough to box, and I think the age was 11, I think it still is 11.
And you were chuffed to bits, obviously, and I couldn't believe this when you said who your first opponent was as an amateur. That's just an incredible story.
Jason Booth.
Jason Too Smooth Booth. What's all that about? And you won as well.
Yeah, it's just ironic that he's from Nottingham and Redford, and he's a professional, he's won British title honours, and he's gone on to do decent things, you know, and he's still boxing out, so he's made a comeback after a few years out.
Yeah.
But no, I boxed Jason 3 times. I thought it was twice, but after that was queried, I pulled out my medical card and I boxed him 3 times.
Carl, you could have fought someone your own size. He's only a bantamweight, the poor lad. I mean,
he was bigger than me then.
Was he really?
Yeah, that's how small I was. He's still probably 5'4" now, or 5'. He's quite a small bloke. I mean, he was taller and bigger than me. That's how small I was. But then when you're 10, 11, you are quite small.
Of course.
But I was pretty small when I left school, like I said, and then when I hit 17, I shot up to 6 foot. So I was tall and skinny, light middleweight amateur.
But in those early years, you were winning pretty much every fight, weren't you? And you were good at it, no doubt about it, weren't you?
Yeah, when I got back into boxing, because my mother, she got a pub in Newark, so I had probably the best part of 4 years out of boxing, from the age of 15 to the age of 19. I had my last 2 years at school in Newark.
Yeah.
I didn't really box. The club was out the way. It was predominantly filled with travellers that just wanted to nick your bike and beat you up when you got outside if you got the better of them in a spar. And it was a long way away from the pub, and I was into playing pool and playing on the gambling machine, and you know, I was at school as well, so I sort of lost interest with boxing. But I think things happen for a reason, and not being in boxing at the time when between 15 and 19, when I was quite small and skinny and weak, like I said earlier, late developer, I might have took a couple of bad beatings, who knows, because when you hit 16, 17, you're automatically a senior. Yeah. So a 17-year-old can fight a 24, 25-year-old, provided they're your weight, and they tend to be very strong when they're a lot older.
So basically you gave up, didn't you?
You
boxed from 11 to 15 as an amateur. You were very good at it.
Yeah.
And then you just gave up for 4 years, and you did all the jobs under the sun, by the sounds.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, I didn't do much boxing. Didn't do much at all. I still sort of did the few runs, and I was into other sports, and I used to mess around in front of the mirror throwing punches and that, but I didn't attend a boxing club. But like I said, things happen for a reason. I had a bit of break out of boxing, and when I was 19, I got that desire back to get fit, to get back in the gym. I didn't really want to start boxing again. I just wanted to get my fitness back to where it once was. I can remember doing a run round to the local shop and being out of breath, thinking, I used to run around here 2 laps, no problem. Yeah. And I was literally like exhausted. So I thought I'll go back down to Phoenix and start doing some tuck jumps and press ups.
That happens to us all eventually, Carl. What sort of jobs did you do?
I worked in my mum's pub actually, so I was doing a lot of bar cellar work and, you know, running the pool team, and we used to do a bit of darts. Yeah, there used to be Skittles. I don't know if you remember that game. Probably
bar Skittles?
Yeah, Skittles in Newark. We had a Skittle alley in the bar, in the beer garden. So I used to just get involved in that. But I've worked in an office. I did a business and finance course at college. So I've done office work. I worked at a company called, it was Diamond Cable, then NTL, which is now Virgin Media. Yeah. I was in the offices there doing direct debits and payments and stuff like that. Yeah. But I was boxing for England at the time. So I was there for 3 years, from 19, 20, 21, 22, and I was boxing for my local club. I picked up an ABA title. I got picked to box for England. So there was good for me, NTL. They used to give me a couple of weeks off to go and fight in various multi-nations tournaments for England. So we used to go to Finland or travel around to Canada or different parts of Europe, Eastern European qualifiers, Olympic qualifiers, while I was still working for NTL.
And while you're working for NTL and being an amateur, you became, well, I think it's fair to say, something of an amateur sensation. You just kept winning, didn't you? Although you always told me that you know, when you wore an England shirt, you were very nervous, weren't you?
I was, yeah. When I boxed as a senior amateur and I was working for NTL and boxing for England, it was no problem. My first year, I didn't know what the ABAs were. I got to the finals and I lost to a guy called Chris Bessie, who was a very good amateur. He won the ABAs 7 or 8 times. He won a Commonwealth Games gold medal after beating me in the ABA finals. Very close points decision. Very dubious. I put him down in round 1. I put him down in round 4, and I lost the points decision. But that's boxing. Sometimes the decision doesn't go your way. But I wasn't really taking boxing serious. I wasn't running, for example.
Yeah.
I was doing my training, but I wasn't running, and I wasn't at the right weight. I was a light middleweight. So a year later, the next season, I started taking it more serious. I filled out a little bit.
You'd
I
have
was
been 20, 21?
21, yeah, 22, 21. Yeah, went up to middleweight, 75 kilo, 11 stone 10, however you dissect it in metric or imperial. I was a middleweight amateur, and I won my first ABA title.
Yeah.
I beat a good kid on the way through, a guy called John Pearce, who was Commonwealth Games gold medalist.
Yeah.
I beat him, and then I won the ABAs, and I got picked to box for England. I won the ABAs again a couple of years later, in between boxing for England, but my highest achievement as an amateur for England was the World Championship bronze medal. Yeah,
First man ever to do it.
I was, yeah, the first ever man. Matched closely by a heavyweight, David Hay. So.
And you felt you were robbed there as well, didn't you?
Well, it was a semi-final of the World Championships, and I had 4 fights in 4 days, and my third fight was on an evening, and the 4th fight was the next morning, and I bashed my thumb quite bad. I mean, it's still quite, this joint here is still a little bit ropey, but I can remember bashing it on the Italian guy's head, as you do when you're boxing. But my hand was inflamed, and my next fight, you're supposed to have 24 hours, but I boxed at 7 o'clock on the night, and then I was boxing at 12 o'clock the next day. So there's a big hoo-ha about you can't fight because you've not had 24 hours, but they had to squash it in. So I jumped in with a Russian world champion for my 4th fight in 4 days with an injury, and sort of half-heartedly jabbed and moved. And when I decided to have a go and I hit him and I caught him, it was all over the place. Robert McCracken was out there with my promoter Mick Hennessy, sort of scouting for talent, and I was the only one that spotted, really, because I lost the semi-final against the Russian world champion, but they could both see that I had him hurt and I had the beating of him. But you touched on it earlier, when I boxed for England, I was quite nervous. There was a lot of pressure on me to perform and do well and try and get on the lottery funding and become a full-time athlete. It's most kids' dreams as it is now. I mean, I'm training up in Sheffield with the kids now, and the lottery sports funding really plays a big part in their life now, because they can train Monday to Thursday, Friday, and it's like a full-time job for them. They get paid, so they're able to not work and train full-time. And we're getting the results from it.